All right, so we're going to start off with a question here, and this is kind of like an application-related question. Do you need a VFD with a small footprint in a tight space? Do you need a cost-effective solution? You need a VFD with a low horsepower range, for a smaller horsepower application. You need a VFD with simple programming, simple controls. Need a solution, for high volume opportunities or for an OEM that plans on ordering quite a few. Well, we'd recommend a micro drive for that. That's our topic of the day is micro drives. So we're going to be talking about the M100 and the G100, and we're going to slightly mention the S100, and we're going to show you guys kind of what we have to offer. But we're mainly going to be diving into the M100 and the G100, since those are the the new offerings that maybe some of you guys are not aware of yet. All right, so to start off, let's kind of just talk about some applications that you'd run into for micro drives and where the micro drives tend to shine. So the micro drives are oftentimes seen as the perfect solution for anything small and anything simple. So if you have like a smaller, simple application, whether it's commercial or in the industrial market, micro drive would be a good option. And as we mentioned on the previous slide, any kind of OEM opportunity, or if you have an OEM installer, that is doing smaller horsepower and wants like a small form factor, that's when we'd recommend a micro drive. So here's kind of a list of just some common applications. Of course, there's more applications, but we're just going to list a few of them. So as far as like HVAC and fans and pumps, that's something we could always get involved in. So whether it's like just like a general purpose fan, or it's in a rooftop unit, or if it's a small machine that has some kind of blower or cooler or dryer or anything like that on it, that'd be a good opportunity. Centrifugal pumps, submersible pumps, booster pumps, circulating pumps, pretty much any kind of pump you think of, you should be able to apply it as long as it's within the capacity range that we offer. Machinery such as treadmills, automatic gates, doors, high-speed doors, elevator doors, washing machines. Food and beverage is a common one. Blenders, mixers, ovens. I've done a few applications with like pizza dough mixers. That's an interesting one. Packaging machines, labelers, baggers, even textile. So injection molding machines, rollers. Material handling is a huge one. Small conveyors, applications with multiple motors or multiple drives. Any kind of like opportunity like that. Stackers and palletizers, again, all material handling stuff would be a good opportunity for a micro drive. Here's a little bit more about applications. A lot of these are the ones we already mentioned, but we're kind of just showing that the drives we're going to talk about today, they're lower capacity. So we're looking at the quadrant on the bottom left here. So capacity is low. And then performance is low to medium. Okay, it's not going to be the most high performance products we're talking about here. So we're talking about, again, simple applications with low horsepower. So, basic fans and pumps, smaller pumps maybe in a water treatment plant, HVAC opportunities or applications, rapid doors, or, anything to do in like a parking facility would be another good one. Conveyors, presses, small cranes or hoists or lifts, and then any kind of small machine that needs a motor and a drive, we'd recommend going with a micro drive. If you start getting into stuff that's a little bit higher performance, we'd recommend going S100 drives. That's what that note on the right is saying. And again, if you guys have any questions, you guys are all muted, but you could always shoot me some questions in the chat, and I'll try to get to the chat questions as we go, and then I'll definitely get to them at the end of the slides. Thank you. So what does LS have to offer? Is maybe what you guys are wondering. So as far as like micro drives, we kind of have three different flavors. So there's the M100, which is a new product. It's very, very entry level. Currently, it's a single phase input, 230 volt only. Okay, so there's no three phase input options on the M100 drive. So always single phase, up to 3 horsepower. So the capacity is small, and then you can only do 230-volt single phase in. One of the nice things that we're coming out with towards the end of the year, maybe late fall, early Q4 of 2020, we're going to be releasing a 120-volt single phase in M100. So this is something that a lot of you guys, I see a lot of familiar names on the participant list here, have been requesting for some time. So we're going to have a single phase drive that's 120-volt in, 3-phase out for you guys. So that'll be out, relatively soon. So this is a new product. The M100, I think, came out late last year, 2019. The G100 is also a new product. I believe this was here around Christmas time or something like that. And so this drive is a 3-phase input, 230-volt, and 3-phase input 480 volts. So there's 2 different voltage classes on the G100. This goes up to 10 horsepower, so a little bit bigger in capacity range than the M100. And it can also be single phase D-rated. So for those of you guys that are familiar with our products, all of our drives, even if they're only single phase in, you could run those as a single phase drive. So you can do phase conversion. It's all been UL listed and UL tested. So easy to do. We have a few documents that kind of shows how to do that. So then the last drive we have is the S100. This drive has been around for a while. It has a single phase input rated drives up to 3 horsepower, very similar to the M100, but it's going to cost more because there's more features on that drive and different functions and stuff. So and then the S100, so it's been out for a while. We have the single phase in, we have 3-phase in, 230, 480 volt. And then the S100, if you guys are aware, it kind of switches from like a micro drive up to 30 horse, and then it changes over to like a full featured, like full size drive, not so much micro once you hit the 40 horsepower mark. And the main reason I'm mentioning the S100 is because if you ever need safe torque off, we'd recommend switching over to the S100, because the S100 is the drive that has the built-in, built-in safe torque off. But each drive has its place, so we're going to talk a little bit about each one of them, mainly focusing on the M100 and the G100. So features and functions are going to change across these drives. And another thing you can think of is the M100 is the smallest capacity. It's the least performance oriented. It's just kind of like a very simple drive, so it's going to be the most cost effective. The G100 is going to be a step up, has a pretty good amount of features. It'll cost a little bit more than the M100. And then the S100 is going to have the most features, so it's going to cost a little bit more than the G100. So those are kind of like the 3 tiers. But overall, all these drives are going to be very small, very compact, and they have quite a few functions, as we're going to get into on the next few slides here. So here's the current LS product lineup. This is not in particular for micro drives. It's showing all of our drives, just so you guys can kind of see where these land. So on the bottom is our compact drive. The M100 is a compact drive only. It only goes up to the 3 horsepower, starts at an 1/8 horsepower. The G100 goes a little bit larger, starts at a 1/2 horsepower, goes up to 10 horsepower. The G100 is going to be expanded up to 30 horsepower in the near future. The IS7, which is like our kind of flagship throw anything at it drive, that starts at 1 horsepower and goes up to 600 horsepower. The S100 goes from 1/2 horsepower up to 100 horsepower. And again, the S100 is kind of split up. We're up to 30 horsepower. It's a micro drive. But once you go past the 30 horsepower mark, it's like a full featured, full size drive. And the H100 is our fan and pump drive. So the H100 is heavily geared towards fan and pump. It's not a micro drive. It goes up to 800 horsepower, but it has a ton of features, for that market, HVAC or irrigation or agriculture and all that. So getting into the M100. So just a few of the highlights, a little bit of an introduction to the M100. So it has a built-in EMC filter, standard. The EMC filter is a C2 class. The whole M100 itself is meant to be a a slim and a compact design. It's DIN rail mountable, and this is also the same for the G100. So we're going to spend a lot of time on the M100 first, just to kind of get you guys acclimated to some of the features and things that we, are available and benefits and stuff. And then a lot of that transfers over to the G100, and then there's kind of more features on top of that, of course. So both of those drives are going to be DIN rail mountable. You can do side-by-side installation. So side-by-side for us means that 2 millimeters side by side. So pretty much virtually touching is how close you can mount these together. And then the DIN rail mount's nice and easy, if you're going to be putting these in a panel. Easy to connect peripherals. So there's an RJ45 port that's standard on the M100. You could use that to plug into like a Modbus RTU, 485 connection. We have a smart copier option. The smart copier, you could do programming, reading and writing parameters with no power required. So that's great for OEMs, or if you're going to be dumping in a bunch of parameters into a lot of drives. That's when we'd recommend the smart copier. We have a remote keypad option, and then we also have the DriveView 9, which is our computer software, which is also available for free on our website. We'll talk about that. Of course, we are UL listed and CE listed. This drive, the M100 and the G100, meet the new UL 61800-5-1, and we have some slides that we're going to show you that kind of explain what that is. So some of you guys may be familiar with the UL 508C. So that's kind of going by the wayside, and it's replaced by this new UL, and these new drives meet that new UL. Also on the larger capacities, so 1.5 kilowatt, 2.2 kilowatts, so 2 and 3 horsepower. It has a built-in dynamic brake unit, which is another nice feature. And then the 485 is standard. We say this is in the US, it's standard because there is another M100, which is like a basic IO M100, which doesn't have the 485 communication on it, but the one we stock in the US does. Okay. All right, so here's some questions we'll check between slides. So yeah, these slides I could send out to you guys. I'll have my email at the end of these slides. As far as computer copying, that's DriveView 9. So DriveView 9 is a free software available on our website. You can do that with any of our drives. And 2 millimeters per unit, or a total of 4. So it's 2 millimeters between. So if you were looking at these two drives, A frame, B frame, you could stack those next to each other, and all you need is 2 millimeters in between those. Then you could have another 2 millimeters between the other two. Canadian standards. I believe these are also CUL. I don't know if you need I think what CSA is like another one. I'd have to check that one. But I could check those out. See what Canadian standards we have as well. So, kind of moving along here is just the lineup and the frame sizes. So there's 3 frame sizes on the M100, A, B, and C. All these are going to be relatively small, and then all of these also have that built-in EMC filter. So here's just a comparison of the M100 to an IC5. So you guys may not have heard the IC5, but that's what this drive is replacing. It's a pretty old drive that they sold globally. We didn't sell it too much in the US. But yeah, the size reduction is pretty huge compared to the old series. So here's just some dimensions here. And you'll find it's relatively compact. So here's just the design showing kind of how this looks. So all these drives have a built-in speed pot, and this is going to be the same design on the G100. There's a built-in speed pot. So we found that a lot of times with these kind of entry-level drives, a lot of the applications just want a simple speed pot on the front of the drive, so you could adjust the speed. So that's standard on all these M100s and G100s. It's toolless removal for the cover. You just slide it off, pops off. You could put all your I/O on there. This is just kind of showing the bottom, the ventilation slots, where your fan's located, and where you run your wires through. And then the DIN rail, of course, on the back. So here's the overview of the capacities on this table on the top right here. So you can see we start at a eighth of a horsepower, so it goes pretty tiny. So if you ever have any fractional horsepower applications, we'd recommend starting with the M100, just because it goes so small and it's going to be a very cost-effective solution. And then it goes up to 3 horsepower. So this is a heavy duty drive. I don't even think there's a parameter to change it to normal duty. So it's 150% overload for 60 seconds, and you can't change it. That's kind of just how it is. And all these specs are pretty much the industry standard, 0 to 400 hertz on the output. It's a 230 volt drive, but you can run it at 208. You can run it at 240. As far as control methods, we have V by F control, slip compensation. There's no sensorless vector control on the M100. So if you have an application where you need maybe some more precise control or higher starting torque, or just like a higher performance, we'd recommend going to a G100 since that has the sensorless vector control on it. Here we're just kind of listing the inputs and the outputs. We have 5 inputs on this. We have a couple outputs, and I believe there's another slide that has like an I/O diagram on it. We also have the automatic torque boost, which some of you guys may be familiar with. Ambient temperature could be -10 to 50 degrees Celsius, which is also pretty much the industry standard. So pretty much meets all the stuff you would expect out of it. So here's just some operational and some functions to kind of keep in mind and review is so we could set the operation to be from the keypad, so that's pretty much hitting the green button, or you could have it on the frequency control on that built-in speed pot. We do have the terminal strips. You could always have a remote start. You could have an external trip. That's a remote external trip. You could do communications since the Modbus RTU is standard. And then there's quite a bit of functionality on this. We do have reverse and forward lockouts. You could set it so people can't run in the wrong direction, like maybe a pump or something like that. You don't want it to run in the opposite direction. We do have the frequency limits. We have the skip frequencies. We have jogging. We have a DC injection braking. We have a up-down function for increasing speed. We do have the 3-wire operation, dwell, the slip compensation control mode. We do have PID on this, speed search, energy savings, automatic restarts. That's just to name a few. We're not going to go through all of them. But even though this is an entry-level drive, you'll find it has most of the features you'd probably need. If you ever need like maybe different communication options, such as like an Ethernet IP, then we'd recommend jumping up to a G100 where there's a little bit more flexibility. So talking about the inputs and the outputs, so we have 5 inputs and we have 2 outputs, and those are fully programmable. So you could set them up for forward, reverse, e-stop, 3-wire start stop, XL decel switches and stuff like that. Just see a few questions here. QR code's not working. That might be an old QR code. So I'd recommend checking out the catalogs for the QR codes, or actually looking at a physical drive and the QR code will work. Yeah, the dynamic brake unit built into the drive, it's not a resistor, it's just a chopper. Yep, the presentations will be shared online and they'll be on YouTube as well. Automatic torque boost, we might not have enough time to explain it now, but the drive defaults to a manual torque boost. So if it sees a need to increase torque, so if the ampere jumps up high, it assumes that the drive needs more torque. It's going to increase your voltage by 2 or 3% because that's the default. If you do the automatic torque boost function, it does the same thing, but the limit is not there. So we do have like a little bit of a write-up. It's like an application note that has information on the automatic torque boost. So my email will be at the end of this presentation. So if you want more information on stuff like that, shoot me in an email, and then I will reply back with the document. We could always discuss that. But I don't think we have time to get too far into it. Yeah, the controls are pretty much the same. So I'll show you guys how the keypad works in a few minutes here in the structure of that. So the M100 and the G100 both utilize this design. So it's what we call like a wireless structure or a wireless design. So the boards are directly connected with like these headers, these black header set of pins you see on the right there. So there's no cables that are connected or anything like that. There's only one cable in the M100 and the G100, and that's just the fan cable. So you could easily pop in and, swap out, a new fan if you have any issues. So just kind of compare us to the competition here, we're looking at an Altivar 12, which is a pretty similar drive. So we have a similar number of PCBs, so printed circuit boards, but we have more connectors, but they're not soldered together. So it makes swapping out parts easier, and also there's less plastic in this drive. So it's just a few components that are automatically assembled. It's on like a robotic line. So it's meant to be an overall more simple design. Yeah, so this kind of shows how things are assembled. The M100 and the G100 are automatically assembled in our factory in Korea robotically. So they just kind of stack it all together. So there's no wires in there. So the only thing they physically connect or a person gets involved with is the fan wiring, and somebody has to snap that in. So here's just the cover removed. You can see it takes an RJ45 cable. That's not like an Ethernet IP connection. It's just a RJ45 port, which you could use for Modbus. So the pinout is in the manual if you want to do Modbus. Smart copier, which is to back up parameters, copy them to different drives and stuff like that. We have a remote keypad option, which is available. So if you want to mount a keypad onto a panel and keep the drive inside of the panel, you can do that. And then we have that computer connection to Drive U9, which we mentioned a couple of times already. So here's the I/O a little bit, more in depth. So on the bottom here, you can see we have P1 through P5. So 5 inputs. It's the same pretty much on the G100. It's the same on the S100, the smaller ones. And then for those of you guys that were used to using the C100, it's pretty much the same I/O as the C100. 5 inputs, two analog inputs. Then we have 1 analog output. We have a 24-volt power supply, and then we have 2 relay outputs on there. We have a Form C and a Form A. So the input. So this is a nice little specification comparison. So there's a lot here. So for those of you guys that were asking, like, if we'll send this out, yes, I could send this out to you guys. I think it'd be a good sales tool, just so you can kind of see how we stack up with the competition. You could probably ignore the comparison of the M100 to the IC5. I think you'd find it more useful for comparing the M100 to the competition. So the Altivar 12, the ABB ACS 55, Danfoss, Yaskawa, and Delta. That's what we're comparing it to here. So just a quick comparison is, we're pretty much on par with the other guys as far as control methods. Everybody runs V by F. We have the slip compensation, which is a pretty good performing control mode. If you use that in combination with torque boost, you can get a lot out of the drive. We could go up to the 400 hertz on the output. We could go with the carrier frequency down to 1 kilohertz up to 15 kilohertz. So that's just the switching rate on the output. We have the built-in dB unit on the 2 and the 3 horsepower, where some of the other guys you'll find that's like not available, or it's like an option with like the Schneider one, but it's standard on our drive for the M100. Certifications, CE, UL, and then we do see that it's also CUL for those of you guys that were asking about the Canadian certificates. We have the built-in EMC filter, which not everybody has. IP20 is the standard, package rating on this drive. And then relative humidity rating is 95%, which is similar to some of the guys, but it's, a little bit better than like the Delta, for example. So this is this is a big table. We don't expect you guys to remember it. So yeah, so we'll make sure we could send this to you guys. Again, my email will be at the end of this. So. All right, so here's another comparison, pretty much the same drives, but we're comparing all of the I/O. So we mentioned here the standard I/O, which isn't really even available in the US. We're only stocking the advanced I/O because the standard I/O we don't feel is enough. So there's only 3 inputs on the standard, whereas there's 5 on the advanced. So that's what we're stocking now. looking at this, you'll see we have pretty much the same amount. We have more than Schneider, more than ABB, more than Delta as far as inputs, and then the outputs. There's only a few competitors that have the analog output. So yeah, and then let's see if there's any other important options. Yeah, the RJ45 port is kind of nice too for kind of ease of connection to your remote keypad, or if you're going to connect to like a smart copier or a computer. So here's a little bit about the programming menus. So I saw some comments that there's like no escape key. So the M100, G100 have an escape. The S100 does, but it's going to be very similar. There's a mode shift key, and if you press that, it shifts through all of your parameters. And if you're ever in a parameter group and you want to get back to your main screen quickly, since there's no escape key, all you do is you press your up and down arrows at the same time, and that shortcuts you to your main screen. So it may get some getting used to. We do have quick start guides that show you how to navigate. We also have some YouTube videos as well that show you how to navigate the keypads. But the programming structure is very similar to all the other drives, and it's 95% the same parameters that you guys may be used to working with already. So pretty intuitive. As we mentioned, the speed pod is standard. Sometimes that's a big selling point, something simple like that. And as far as connectivity, we have the 485, and we could connect up to 16 drives. In like a daisy chain arrangement. We only have a single port on here, so you'd need like an external connector if you wanted to like split it up and run drives 1 through 16 all on the same network. Here's a little bit more about the compliance. So here's the CUL mark that some of you guys were asking about. We do meet the new UL design. I think there's a slide that's coming up after this that shows that, since that's a common question. A lot of people don't know about that yet. Rated for the up to 240 volts, for the U.S. market. We have the higher humidity level, the old series. I think even the C100 that isn't around anymore is only rated 80%. Then we have 150% overload capacity for 60 seconds, and that's at 50 degrees Celsius. Okay. So here's a nice little cheat sheet about the new UL standard. So this is the new UL 61800-5-1. So what they've added or kind of changed versus the old UL 508C is they in some creepage requirements. So you need to have an actual separation, between the main bus and your communication circuit. So it's like the higher voltage stuff and the lower voltage stuff. That changed from 3 millimeters up to 5.5 millimeters. Then the short circuit test used to only be done on the motor output, UVW. Now they added in the DC bus also needs to pass the short circuit test. There's a breakdown of components test that has been added. And then there's also an electrical bonding test. So, pretty much stricter quality requirements compared to the old UL 508C. Okay. And this is kind of showing how everything has been transitioned. So actually all new products now, since we're already in April of 2020, need to meet this new 61800. There's been a transition plan that started in 2013 where any kind of new products that had any kind of engineering changes or hardware changes, they could pick what they're going to be. But then by February 2016, they would have to meet this new UL. Okay, so any kind of changes would have to meet the new UL. And then pretty much now, any new products are going to have to meet the new UL. Let's see, here's some questions. So is the new UL harmonized with IEC? I'd have to check. I'm pretty certain it is. UL usually just takes IEC and then throws their name on it. But it's probably based on an IEC standard, I'd have to assume, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. There's quite a few questions here, so I'm gonna hold off on those till the end because we have a lot of slides to get through still since we got started late. This new UL is not related to EMC interference. The EMC interference is more for filtering and stuff, whereas this is kind of more of like a safety standard. So here's a little bit more on the new UL as well. So the creepage distance has increased. So they've increased that. So you can see here's like a power board on the right side, and they had to separate the 24-volt supply from the DC bus, side of things. There needs to be a physical difference there. So that's why some people will be surprised. They'll get like an M100 or a G100, like, oh, this is actually pretty big, compared to what we were used to working with, an older product. Well, that's because we physically have to increase the size of the drive, to, increase these distances. The withstanding voltage has also doubled from 1500 volts and 1800 volts accordingly, based on your voltage class, up to 3000 and 3600 volts. And then the short circuit test has been, made a little bit stricter as well. And then the, breakdown of components. It used to just be like, hey, check and make sure nothing lights on fire. Well, it's the same thing, but you also got to check the power supply too while you're doing the breakdown test, a low voltage power supply. Something we've also improved upon too, since these are kind of new and improved products, is we've improved the plastics on the drives. So we used to use ABS plastic, and now it's changed to a PPE, which is like polyethylene ether. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but pretty much it's supposed to be more distance package, less brittle. To you guys. Again, old QR code, but if you check out the latest catalogs, there should be a new QR code in there. All the QR code does is it goes to this qr.lsis.com, and I think that actually redirects you to qr.lselectric, since we've recently changed our name. But I'd recommend, the website. It's not going to work on your computer. It's meant for mobile, so but if the installation, troubleshooting, operation help, specifications, and then also the 800. By using that QR code. Then we also have the G100 now, so we're questions here. Let me roll up. Let's see. This is the M100, G100. So I don't think the M100 and the G100 could go up to high frequencies, such as like 1,000 hertz, like the S100. So if you ever have like a high station, we would recommend the S100 for now. Maybe in the future they might come out with a higher frequency firmware. Maybe. But yeah, there's certain conditions when you'd want to go to the S100. One would be safe torque off. I think another one would be torque control. And then like, another one would be like CNC or spindles. So if you ever get into the higher performance applications, that's when you'd, switch over to the S100. Let me just check out some other questions here. Yeah, the 485 splitter would be a third-party option. You wouldn't be able to buy that from us. Then it looks like some people said my audio is cutting out. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Might be my connection or something, since we have so many people. All right. Does it sound any clearer now? So, okay, it looks like everybody's saying it's clear, so maybe my connection was a little bit funky. All right, so thanks for hanging in there, guys, while the audio is a little bit choppy. And thank you guys for the questions as well. Feel free to put more questions in as they come to mind. Now we're going to switch over to the G100. So again, the G100 is like a step up. It's going to cost a little bit more than the M100. The range is a little bit wider, and there's just some more functionality here. So it also has a built-in EMC filter. It's standard on the 400-volt drives. You can't get it on the 230-volt drives. It's a C3 Class C3 filter versus the M100, which was a C2 filter. You know, very similar design, slim, compact, DIN rail mountable. You could do the side-by-side 2 millimeter installations. So, you know, you could fit it into a small package. You know, you got the peripherals that you can install with the RJ45 port. The G100 just has this little door on the front, and you can just pop off that door, so you don't even need to remove the cover. And then you know, plug into your computer. You could plug in a remote keypad. You could plug in a smart copier. So that's kind of a nice thing. It's just without, you know, exposing any, you know, higher voltage terminals or anything. And we have the built-in DB unit. Again, this is the built-in transistor. It's not a resistor. It's just the transistor. You kind of bring your own resistor and, you know, pop it onto those terminals, B1 and B2. Then you could, you know, absorb some of that energy that you need to. That's going to be on all sizes. So right now the G100 goes up to 10 horsepower. 485 is standard. Modbus RTU, and then we have options for Ethernet IP. That's a dual port card, which is a nice thing to have. And then we have Profibus, which I don't think is out yet, but it'll be out relatively soon. So as of now, this goes up to 10 horsepower. We have 4 different frame sizes. So we have the up to 1 horsepower frame size, up to 3 horsepower, then we have the 5 horsepower, and then we have all the way up to 10 horsepower with the frame size 4. Yeah, so I mean, here's all the dimensions here. We do have CAD files and drawings, which are on our website as well. Here's the specifications. So these are the 3-phase specifications, okay? So we have the 200 volt and the 400 volt class, so good for 208, 230, 240, or, you know, 480 volts for the 400 volt series. So as you guys know, all the drives are in kilowatts, but that could easily be converted over to horsepower. So more importantly, we'd want to be looking at the output ratings. So a 10 horsepower drive is good for 32 amps heavy duty. That's the HD, or 40 amps normal duty. Okay, so this drive you could actually flip between heavy duty and normal duty. Then we have the 480 volt one. Same thing, goes up to 10 horsepower. This is going to be expanded up to 30 horsepower as well. In the future, but right now we're stacking up to 10 horsepower. Very similar slide here. You'll notice on the top it says single phase specifications. So again, you could take any of our 3-phase drives and you could apply them to single phase. It's all been UL tested, it's UL listed. We have the documents to prove it. So you could get, it's pretty much like a 50% D rate. So a 10 horsepower drive, you're going to be able to run approximately a 5 horsepower motor. And it's always good to check our documentation and make sure that the amperages line up, because it is a, you know, it's a current rated device. But we do have this available to you guys, the single phase rating. So keep that in mind. Here's another competitive comparison. So here we're comparing the, you know, the G100 over to a Yaskawa V1000, and then to, you know, a Fennec Mini, you know, by Fuji. So we have the dual rating on this guy. We could run V by F. We could run IM centralist, which is just an induction motor, a centralist vector control. And then we could also do PM centralist on the S100. So notice that note there. We can only do induction motors on the G100. We don't have centralist control for permanent magnet motors yet. So you'd want to use the S100. That's another opportunity to switch it up to S100. This drive meets the new UL, whereas some of the competition. And then we also have the EMC filter. And then, you know, just to kind of see some of our options, we have the Profibus. Can't open in the US. I don't know if we're going to stock that, but the dual port Ethernet IP is something we're stocking, and you know, common option for you guys. DIN rail mount, again, is standard up to 5 horsepower on the G100. Where for the other guys, you'll find it's like an option. Okay. M100, 115 volts, that's going to be available maybe fall, late Q3 or early Q4. So here's the same competitive comparison, but showing all of this. One of our benefits is we could do that smart copier. So if you have an OEM that wants to be able to dump parameters into a drive or a bunch of drives without powering it up, that Smart Copier is a nice option. We have the 2 relays, whereas some of the other guys only have 1 relay on there. And then we have that RJ45 connection, and we could do terminals like S plus and S minus for communications. And this pitch right here, this bottom line that's in blue, 5 millimeters, that's showing how large the inputs could open for the I/O, which is actually a pretty nice feature, because if you ever tried wiring up these micro drives, usually the terminals are very small, and then customer always has the biggest wire ever to fit in there. But these I/O terminals go pretty wide, so you should be able to, jam in a pretty big wire. The Ethernet card is a Ethernet IP Modbus TCP card, so it is both in one for that question. So here's a comparison to some of the other LS drives. So we have the C100, which isn't 100% around anymore. The S100, which of course is still around, and then the G100, which is kind of the newest offering. So the G100, since it's the newest product, has the highest mean time to failure. We use the military handbook to calculate that failure rate, and I think there's another slide later that comes up talking about quality and all that good stuff. All of our drives are conformal coded. 3C2 is the conformal coding rating. So they've improved upon it on the G100. They pretty much coded everything except the connectors, because those can't be coded because they're conductor. 100 meets the new UL, whereas the older products don't meet that new UL. They're UL 508C. And then we have the plastic, the PPE plastic on the G100. So it's a little bit different. So here's that, again, mentioning that, improved upon mean time to failure, which puts us ahead of some of the competition here. Dust resistance, with the PCB coatings that we, conformal coatings that we talked about on that last slide. And then we have the higher humidity rating on here. Okay. Keep in mind is the G100 has the same parameter structure as the M100, which is pretty much the structure as the S100. So if you could navigate parameters on one drive and do programming, you should be able to do it on all of them. It's pretty much the same, okay? We also have quick start references, QSRs, which I know some of you guys have seen before and like. We have those for all of the drives, which make it easy for anybody to start them up. It's pretty straightforward, step by step. We do have the free programming and monitoring software, which works for all of our drives. That's called DriveView 9. You can download that off our website, at no cost. We have the QR codes, which are printed on the front of all the drives. So if you scan that, that brings up the qr.ls.whatever.com, and it has like manuals and quick starts and things like that on there. Then we also have video instructions, which I'm not sure if you guys are aware of, but we have a YouTube page. Let me just click this link here, just to kind of show you guys our YouTube page. I'd recommend subscribing and liking our videos. Just go on YouTube and search LS Electric America. We've been posting up our webinars that we've been doing recently. We have some contactor videos, some circuit breaker videos. We got drive videos. We got pretty good amount of videos. We're always trying to expand this. How to put together a reversing contactor. We have the introduction videos, which are kind of a good sales tool for you guys, and basic programming. So just be aware of our website or our YouTube page, lselectricamerica.com. There's a lot of good stuff on there. All right, so kind of moving along with some other stuff here. So easy operation and maintenance. This is very similar to the M100, okay? So we have the built-in speed potentiometer. We have this little door you could pop off here, so you could plug in a smart copier, you could plug in your Modbus connection, you could plug in your computer connection. And then another nice thing is you could pop off that little door and you could put on your field bus option. So if you have an Ethernet card, you just remove this door, pop on your card, and there's just one screw that holds it on and you're done. So you can get an option card on there, within a minute or less, okay? Then also, as always, with all of our drives, the fans are pretty easy to replace. You know, you squeeze a couple tabs and then you swap out the fan. Okay? So we're trying to make it easy here, and you know, maintenance should be easy thing for you guys. So now we're going to get into some key functions is what we're going to talk about next. Right now, we're just going to show you the flying start and the KEB, which is the kinetic energy buffering. So the G100 can do the coasting, start a coasting motor, which is like, you know, flying start, speed search, whatever you guys want to call it, without any, you know, additional sensors. Okay, so we have flying start 1 and 2, two different flying start modes you could try out. I think one is like a current one, and then another one's like a speed estimator. Then we have KEB, which is a good way to kind of keep the drive powered up by using the freewheeling motor. So a freewheeling motor acts as a generator. We could utilize that energy to keep the drive, you know, powered up when, you know, you have like a low voltage or like a, you know, a blackout or a brownout situation. Okay. So here we're going to list out some of the, you know, functions of the G100, and then a lot of these are on the M100 and the S100 as well. I'm not going to read through all of these, so I'm just going to kind of, you know, pick out some that I think you guys might find interesting. Of course, we have many different operation modes you could pick from. You could do keypad, you could do speed pot, you could do remote signal, you could do 485, you could do Ethernet, lots of different sources for starting and stopping. We do have that power on run settings. You can have it start automatically after a power loss. Pretty much all the same stuff that's on like the S100 or the H100 or the IS7. Okay. XL decel switch frequencies. We have the jump frequencies where you could skip over stuff. We have different stopping modes, fully adjustable V by F patterns, square wave reduction, V by F patterns, you know, for fans and pumps. We have the torque boost functionality, free run to stop power braking, which is a nice function, which I know some of you guys on this webinar have used and had pretty good success with the power braking. It's on the G100 as well. We have the fire mode, which is like a run to fail or like a fire switch. We have PID. We have actually PID on all the drives, which is nice. 3-wire operation as well if you get into like something like a winder maybe or something. We have the cooling fan controls, so you can flip the fans to come on, you know, only higher temperature. Let's see, we have programmable analog outputs, digital inputs, digital outputs. We have the press region, so if you want to put a G100 on a small press, we do have the region avoidance function on this drive. So there's a lot of features here that are just standard on this drive. So what I'd recommend is if you guys you know, have any questions as far as like applications, you could always, you know, give me a call, give John a call, give your local sales guy a call. And I think we all know a little bit about what applications work best for which drive. So that was all I had as far as this presentation. So thank you guys for coming. I have a couple more slides I'm going to show, but I want to first answer some questions here. I got that one. Let's see, I got that one. Encoder or pulse input option. So the only drive that can handle a quadrature encoder would be the IS7. You need to get an encoder option card. If you're just going to do like a pulse train input, you could use the S100 drive. The S100 drive has a standard pulse train input. And then plenum rating. I know the S100 is plenum rated, and I think we're currently investigating if the G100 is plenum rated. But I know for sure the S100 is plenum rated. And then also the H100, which we didn't talk about because this is a micro drive webinar, but the H100 is plenum rated as well because that's, you know, the HVAC drive. Okay? All right, so feel free to throw some extra questions in there if you have any. Otherwise, I'm going to put up here, these are some contacts for you guys. So if you guys want copies of these slides, you can just shoot us an email or give us a call. Email would be best because then we could just reply to the email. So you can email us at techsupport.us@lselectricamerica.com. And I also put some of your local sales guys' information up here. So Dave LaRue in the East, if you guys have any questions, Gary in the Midwest, and then Andy's helping out with the Southwest and the Western regions as well. So feel free to shoot an email or give them a call.